Wake up. You have been asleep too long. Wake up. You've forgotten how to sing. You lost the music to your song. Hurry. Come aboard. Your ship awaits you. Hurry. Listen to the wind. The water's serenade. It's you they call. Don't be afraid. You must be brave. You will cry a little, but tears salt the sea and make it strong. You must be brave. You will cry a little. Tonight, we crossed an ocean 4 centuries long. No, you don't need this. You don't need that. No suitcases, no laptops, no maps, no keys, no shoes, no wedding rings. Nothing more than you. Please. Settle down now. Feet on the ground now. No time to turn and run. This ship is steady, and they say your soul is ready. No time to turn. Our journey has begun. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! There was blood everywhere when she was born. This little girl child who came out of the womb without a peep, surrounded by blood, with a caul over her face. Some said she was a bad omen, but her mother loved her, and her father did too. They called her
Fonty. When Fonty awoke in the morning, she would find her mother already awake. Already the yard would have been swept and the hot pepper soup would be on the embers. But Fonty always rose in time to pour libation. Together with her mother, Fonty would pour the water from a large wooden bowl onto the ground in thanks, a libation to the ancestors and great spirits that ruled the world. Fonty loved this ritual and so was disturbed when early one morning her mother said, "Wake up. Wake up, they have come, the men with guns. Your father is off on the hunt. We must run." So they ran, her mother with her baby brother strapped to her back, and she, Fonty, with a little pouch of shells and gold to trade. Her mother was strong and had been watchful, but the men with guns tracked them down. So, on the morning that they did not pour libation, when all of the men were off on the hunt, Fonty was stolen from her mother and taken to a slave ship.
Sometimes
Trapped in the hold with over 100 other women and children, Fonte forced herself to sleep. Sleep, she told herself, and when you awaken, you will be home. But it was hard to sleep for long in the hold. It was hot and the air stagnant. There was little room to shift and a perpetual keening that sometimes got soft but would abruptly pick up as one child or another railed at the lack of water or food or home. Fonte cried. How would her mother find her? Would her father come for her? She had not run quickly enough. She had slowed her mother down. Her mother would be angry. They had not poured libation that morning. The ancestors in great spirits would be angry. Fonte could not remember the songs they sang to ask forgiveness. Day after day passed, slowly, but then in a blur, and Fonte began to sleep longer and longer. When the gruel was passed to her, she shook her head no and drifted back to sleep. One day she was brought up to the deck and fell down. Promptly, a leather whip sang through the air and striped her calf. The pain opened her eyes and she cried out, "Move." An older girl signaled to her they wanted her to move. So Fonte joined the long line of children from the boat to a smaller boat where they were rowed ashore. When on the shore, Fonte stood as cold seawater was thrown over her. Dizzy from the water, the sun, and the sudden stillness of land, Fonte began to heave. The leather whip sang again and she toppled over. It was like fire on her back. Again, the strong brown hand pulled her up. The older girl from the ship put her palm over Fonte's mouth to stop the screaming, and she held her in front of her. "Shh," she murmured. Fonte's body trembled as she cried, but when the man with the leather whip strode toward her, she gathered herself tight and looked down. Suddenly, she was pulled forward out of the grip of the older girl and taken to a pale woman with kind eyes. "We will call you Phillis, after the ship that brought you here."
And so began Fonte's life as Phillis Wheatley, an enslaved poet whose book Poems on Subjects Religious and Moral was published in 1774 when she was only 20 years old. She was the first African American and only the third American woman to have published a book. Come now. The waves rise higher, the wind grows strong. Listen to the serenade, listen to the song of a praying woman named Hannah.
Long, long ago, but not too long ago, in a land far, far away called New Jersey, a praying woman named Hannah served a master, a mistress, their children, and the shop they kept. Hannah kept the garden. Hannah cooked the meals. Hannah cleaned up after the meals. Hannah did the laundry. And Hannah prayed. Nobody knew she was praying. They thought she had a mumbling problem. In fact, nobody knew her name. Her master and mistress called her Susan, just like the first black woman they used to own. One day, her master hired an apprentice to draw up legal documents and maintain the accounts. About 19 or so, the apprentice was the quiet sort, given to watching folk and sitting in his room, reading and writing. Early one morning, when Hannah was hanging the wash, praying as usual, the apprentice approached her, quiet and easy, like you would a horse you didn't know. He handed her a shirt, saying, "I have watched thee over these past months. I know thou art praying. Will thou pray for me?" Hannah hung up the shirt. The young man passed her another, and another. And as they worked, Hannah thought of her own son. Who would pray for him if she prayed for this other mother's son, this white man? No, she thought. No. And when they were done the laundry, Hannah picked up her basket and without looking at the apprentice said, "Yes." At first, she only prayed for the apprentice when she happened to think of it. Then she started to pray when she saw him going to the storeroom early every morning. Then she took to nodding at him and even setting aside biscuits for him when he returned late from his Sunday worship. I don't know how long this went on. Might have been a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, might have even been a couple of years. But one day, Hannah's master summoned her to the storeroom. When she got there, he motioned her to sit down. Then she got nervous. She had never been told to sit in all her 9 years of serving this man. Her master was talking to an elderly Quaker gentleman. She could tell by his dress, though very plain, he was a man of class. And then she heard a sigh. It was the apprentice. She looked to him for some hint of what was going on, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. His face was unnaturally still, gray. He was writing. And then the knowledge flooded her and would have knocked her down if she hadn't already been seated. She was being sold again. The apprentice wrote the bills of sale for the master, and like a sack of flour or a spool of thread, she was being sold. As the bile rose in the back of her throat, Hannah hustled out of the room. She chastised herself for getting comfortable, for letting each year lull her into sleep. How had she forgotten? She had let herself trust the apprentice, and she thought, because he'd known she was praying all along, she thought that made him a human being, a man, another mother's son. But he was no such thing. He was a snake on two legs, a despicable creature. Hannah's laughter took her by surprise. Sharp and foul, it rolled out of her as she grabbed her midsection to keep it back. And then she was back in time. 9 years ago, when old Josiah had held her around the waist, she'd screamed, she'd begged not to be sold. But Master Tom had just walked away. She'd been taken from her son. "10 years old. Old Josiah had held her and prayed first for her and then her child. He convinced her to stay alive just to keep praying for her child. And she'd done it until the apprentice came. She prayed the same prayer for 9 years and then let herself believe she could pray for another mother's son. But now she saw her mistake. A slave, a black woman, can only get God's attention for one thing.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes
Her son.
I feel
How would he find her? Did he remember her name? If she moved again, how would he find her? Jesus. 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 Nothing else. Just like old Josiah had told her. Only Jesus. Over and over again until she was bigger and wider than the pain, until she was a clearing, a green field, and the pain nothing but a speck. Jesus. She could breathe now. Jesus. As she re-entered the storeroom. Jesus, as the Quaker gentleman approached her. Jesus, as her master spoke. Jesus, as she stepped into the wagon. Jesus, as the apprentice stood, gray and silent in the doorway. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.
I want to meet my mother. I want to meet my mother.
Hannah's prayer burned through the apprentice. Jesus, Jesus. He grew hot and cold by turns in his bed. Jesus, Jesus. Boils, bumps, and rashes burst through his skin. Tears burned his eye sockets. Jesus, Jesus. He'd known it was wrong. Jesus. But he'd been afraid. He'd served the wrong master. Jesus. What could he do? Jesus. Please, God, what could he do?
I want to meet my Jesus. I want to meet my Jesus. I want to meet my Jesus. I'm born to live with God. I want to meet my Jesus. I want to meet my Jesus. I want to meet my Jesus. I'm born to live with God. I'm born to live with God. With God.
The apprentice left his master and traveled the entire eastern seaboard, urging his fellow Christians to abolish slavery. Many listened. And though Hannah never saw her son again, her prayers sourced the most important abolitionist of the 18th century, John Woolman.
It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh
You promised to be brave. You will cry a little, but tears salt the sea and keep it strong. You must be brave. Tonight, we cross an ocean 4 centuries long. Paris, France, 1783. John Jay's Abby.
Abby J. I ain't a slave. Master J say he spoil me. Master J say he free me when we get back to New York. But I can't wait. I don't trust Mistress J. She took the poker to me once. Course he was gone when she done it, but she couldn't hide the damage for long. I still got the mark. Master J say he free me when we get back to New York. But how I know that? She could change his mind for him. I've seen her. He wasn't gonna let her come to France, but she changed his mind for him. And look at us now, all here in Passé. Oh, she's something, that Mistress J. But I'm something too. And I know there ain't no slavery in France. I heard Master Franklin and Master J talking. They got regulations for people of color, but the French courts don't want no slavery in France. So I just up and left, cool as you please, early in the morning, right before first light. I went to Madame Beauvoir, the colored lady from Martinique, and asked for work. I can sew, I can clean, and I can dress any kind of hair. Madame say I'm beautiful. La Negresse d'Amérique, she calls me. And we get along good until the police come.
Open up, open up.
And they show Madame the warrant for my arrest, signed by the Secretary of Benjamin Franklin, Minister Plenipotentiary. They found me in the kitchen.
You are Abby, a servant of John and Sarah J.
Madame Beauvoir pleaded with them that I was a good girl, that I was not a slave. She begged them not to take me to the dungeon and to return me to Mistress J. But I said, no, I won't go back to her. And I don't even cry. My breath keep catching, and I'm afraid, but I can't go back to being her slave. Commissioner Lenoir questioned me when I got to the dungeon. He was sorry, he said, but the Secretary of Benjamin Franklin, Minister Plenipotentiary, had been quite clear. I was to be held until I agreed to return to Mistress J. It was dark all the time in there. The floor was packed dirt. And the smell, made me retch. I got the shakes on the third day. I just took the trembling and I couldn't stop. keep down water even. The mistress sent Uncle to come talk to me. I could tell he was scared of me, scared of mistress. He was a real slave, Uncle Peter. And I was as foreign to him as a talking horse. But who knew what mistress might do if he came back without me? So he kept talking about me being freed when we got back to New York and how master always favored me. But he knew mistress wasn't gonna let him free me. Not me. Not so I could walk around New York City a free woman, a beautiful free woman who a gentleman might call upon. Poor uncle. He knew she hated me and that her husband did not. He knew, but he pretended. He was a slave through and through. But I ain't no slave. I ain't no slave. Please, Madame Beauvoir, please. Is Master J returned from London? Then you must go to Dr. Franklin. Tell him Abby, servant of John Jay, has been in prison. Tell him I'll go back to the Jay's house when Master J return. And in the meantime, I stay with you. Oh. Give him this. You're back too soon. I told you not to speak to his secretary. You must go directly to Dr. Franklin. Did you give him the handkerchief? He would not have refused it. Master J say he spoiled me. Master J would not refuse me. No. I won't go back. Now that I'm done, Mr. J had me freed. Don't want no dead runaway on a husband's hands, on Dr. Franklin's. She's something. But I'm something too. You tell her I will die here. A free woman. Free.
tales told tonight. 3 women, strong. Now I, your captain, come to you with the question, what will you do? You are too brave. This ship too small to hold your soul 4 centuries long.
effort like this takes many, it takes a village. And we'd like to thank our director, Pat LeMay, and have her come down to stage, please. And can we please just give another round of applause for our wonderful, amazing, fabulous, fantabulous musical director, Mr. A.J. Walker.
And of course, we want to thank, of course, our lovely actresses. We have Nakisha Peterson, Lisa White, and Rita Clark.